Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are in the world. My name is Jade, and this is How to App on iOS. And today we're catching up with an amazing developer and musician, Ryan Robinson. But first, we're going to kick off with some of his music from a live stream, and this is from his musical creations called Track and Field. So this is a live stream, so buckle up and relax. Here we go. Boom. Boom! Hey everybody, welcome to the show. I hope you're all doing good in the hood. My name's Jade. This is How to App on iOS. And it's Friday here in Australia, and I'm doing you a solid today. I'm keeping the microphone in front of my tooth because it's still fucked. And I'm straight after this show heading to the dentist to go and get it fixed. Yay, good times. So unfortunately today, you're going to be seeing this in front of my face. It just is what it is. And the painkillers are really kicked in today. So this is How to App on iOS, where each day we look at apps, we talk about making music, and from time to time, once a week, we have somebody really interesting on the show, some type of creative soul on the show, and today is no different. I want to thank you all for being here. If you're watching over on the Facebook, thank you very much for being here, because I'm not broadcasting on Facebook. But if you're watching here on YouTube, welcome along. If you're watching on Twitch, also, thank you for being here. And yes, it is Tooth Fixing Day today. And you may have noticed, I've got comments now on the screen. How cool are they? Yeah, comments. And I'm not even using StreamYard. Good stuff. So it's a nifty little trick I've learned. And we'll catch up and say hello to you all soon. All right, so my guest today is somebody I'm super excited to have on, because when this show first started, what I wanted to have was a decent mix of artists, people who create music, and people who help us do so, developers, because without them, I wouldn't have a show. To all these fantastic apps that we have, because we are living in the future with all these amazing apps. So, I covered this particular developer's apps, a couple of them over the last month. So the first one I covered was SDS-x, which was a drum synthesizer, drum machine kind of thing. And the recent one is one of my favorite apps. It actually is in my list for App of the Year, and it is ZOA. I've used it on, about 8 shows now to demonstrate other apps. I've used it to demonstrate itself. It's definitely one of my favorite apps. It's clever. It's very ingenious. So I really wanted to get this particular developer onto the show because he's fairly new at this game and already smashing the shit out of it. So without further ado, I'll just state too, that track was from a live stream on his channel Track and Field. The links are in the description down below. And so this is the musician, the developer, and this is the wonderful Ryan Robinson. Make sure I've got the mute set, and welcome to the show, my friend. Hello.
Hey, Jade. Thanks for having me.
I've got you muted. There. Oh, I can hear you now. How are you today?
All right. Hey, thanks for having me. I'm doing really well.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on the show. And it's just awesome to have a developer on the show. The only other one I've had on the show was Jordan Rudess. So, you know, it's been a while. So thank you so much for coming on. How have you been?
Well, I've been well. It's starting to get cold here where I live in the Northern Hemisphere. So I'm just trying to stay warm and stay productive and stay happy.
Absolutely. So tell us a little bit about that. So that's the first live stream you've done on YouTube on that particular channel. Do you have more planned? What's happening with that? What's going to become of that?
Yeah. So my goal with Track and Field is I've been spending so much time programming lately that I realized I really need a musical outlet. And, partly inspired by your channel and other kind of live streams I've seen, I thought, what better way to share than as I do it? So I kind of been dabbling. There's still some things I think I got to work out, but I hope to do, live streams of improvised synth music on, weekly, semi-weekly basis on Thursday nights here.
Awesome. So, yeah, because it is rare to see, I know so many developers and I'm subscribed to all their channels, but it's rare to actually see them producing music instead of always just, giving us demonstrations of how to use their apps for us to make music. So I think it's a really positive thing to see developers making music at the same time. So I really enjoyed finding that channel. Well, you sent it to me, so thank you for that.
Yeah, thanks. I think the irony for me was that one of the reasons I first started developing apps is because I wanted to have extra cash for like synths and music stuff. But then I spent so much time on the programming part that I kind of didn't get to play music as much as I wanted. And so even just recently, I was like, you know what? I got to change that.
Yeah, I'm the same doing this show. You know, I've been working on an album for way too long for this band here to see it. But in the meantime, I've released a bunch of stuff. But the only time I've got to release music, it seems, is during this show. So you've got to combine it into the show. And then you feel kind of guilty at the same time because it's like, oh, hi, we're doing a month of me recording a song, everybody. So you're dragging everybody along. Yeah, so it's a bit of a guilty thing. But because, you know, you don't have time, you're constantly making. And like this show, I'm doing these shows for other people to make music. But in the long run, it's like, when do I get a chance to make music? So I guess you've got to take every opportunity that comes your way in this crazy world at the moment.
Yeah. I think that's why the live stream is a good format for me, because it doesn't, you know, I don't have to spend a bunch of time recording or writing. I can just sort of explore sounds that I've been, you know, spending time with.
Absolutely, yeah. And it's the reason I do it as well. I don't have the time to sit and do pre-packaged stuff. So I'm going to hit you with your first question today. Ryan, what does music mean to you?
Okay, yeah, I watched a couple interviews to prepare, so I knew this one was coming. I mean, I think first off, music is mainly like a form of self-expression. A way to kind of express how I'm feeling. You know, I think about, I grew up taking piano lessons, and, you know, you get to a certain point where you have enough skills to be able to just sit down and play for a bit, even though it's, you know, nothing in particular, but just having that sort of experience of sitting down, playing some music, whatever's going on, I was, you know, feeling better afterwards, you know, feeling like like therapy almost. I think also, so there's like the self-expression aspect of it. I think too, you know, I played in some bands throughout high school and college. And so there's definitely like a community and camaraderie thing to it, where, you know, some of my good friends that I've made throughout the years, you know, we became friends over like band rehearsals and getting to know each other, playing music together.
Awesome. Well, we'll delve a little bit more into that shortly. So do you recall the music that was played in your household as a kid growing up? And has it affected you? Has it influenced you? I'm sure your music's a far different cry to what I grew up with, because you're a lot younger than me.
Yeah, well, so my mom, she grew up playing a lot of 80s music around the house. So all of those like 80s mega hits, she had a playlist of those that, you know, I'd hear those pretty often. And I think that kind of seeded my interest in synthesizers, now that I sort of think about it.
Any particular artists you recall?
Oh man. Well, you know, I've heard that saxophone solo on Careless Whisper a lot of times.
It's so good.
The Toto, yeah, Africa, and Phil Collins, Elton John, you know, so.
Awesome. What about do you recall the first piece of music or album or that you were given, and B, purchased, and what particular thing was it on? I'm guessing cassette.
Oh, I can't remember the first album I was given, but I do remember one of the first CDs I bought was Coldplay, Rush of Blood to the Head, which I really enjoyed at the time. I was in high school, and I just remember being like, wow, this is so good. You know, I love the piano on it, and we've taken quite a journey since then.
Yeah. So from hearing this music, what was your first instrument that you were inspired to pick up or purchase or start playing?
Well, my parents had me
Right.
take piano lessons when I was in elementary school, so that's kind of how I got started with it. But I think it's not really cool when you're young, so I talked them into letting me stop about eighth grade. But but then in high school, I had some friends who played guitar, and I ended up coming back to keyboard, learning music theory actually through YouTube, and kind of coming at it from that angle.
I wish I had YouTube around when I was young because it was a lot. We were discussing this. I forget where we were discussing this. Perhaps now I think it was on a live stream I was on last week. But back in the day, to get sheet music or like tablature to learn guitar, it was, oh my God, you had to buy it. Like I remember buying a music book for Metallica. It was a Justice for All album. And it cost like $50 and it was wrong. All of it was wrong. And these days you can just like type into Google and within seconds, you may still find a lot of wrong tablature, but at least you'll be able to sift through it and find something half decent out of it. So.
Oh man, yeah, it's incredible. I've learned so many things on YouTube. Yeah.
I don't know if you're like me and probably many others here. I don't even watch TV anymore. Like YouTube is just, it's all I watch. Like I have such a constant stream of subscriptions and interesting shows like, serial killer channels, snake breeding channels, tarantula breeding channels that I'm constantly, each day, there's enough things that are being updated for me to have a constant stream of television. Am I the only one doing that? Is that how you use YouTube as well?
Oh yeah, no, I think that when I first realized what was on YouTube, it was in college, and I had this friend who he'd watch everything from like woodworking videos to videos about math and science. And he's like not into woodworking, but he just had this whole feed, and I was like, all of this is on YouTube. This is incredible.
Yeah, it's absolutely ridiculous. Audible video. Why do you think snake and tarantula breeding? I'm pretty sure you knew all that from hanging out in Clubhouse with me. All right, so I want to ask this question because I know for me, this is something that's very near to dear to my heart because I love computers. I love programming. I'm not a programmer as such well enough to make apps, but I've always been into code and stuff. So do you remember what your first computer was?
Oh, yeah. I got one of those white plastic MacBooks in high school that, using it for my studies. I had no idea even about programming or computer science then, but that was my first computer that I owned.
And so I'm guessing it was for study, but what else did you get up to using it that led you down the path to actually begin? Because there's always those things. Like I got my first computer was a Commodore VIC-20 by my family, and they were like, this is for school. And the very first thing I did was code a game on it, a golf game I'll never forget.
Wow.
Back in the day, we had magazines, my friend, and you could code out games out of the magazines. It would take you like 3 days to type it all in, and then you'd hit run, and it would come up a syntax error line 2 out of 10,000 lines. And you're like, is this what it's going to be for the next 3 days? And it was.
Oh yeah.
But did you?
Well, I didn't really come around to programming until partway through college, honestly. I can't remember what prompted me, but I did take, even though it wasn't my major in college, I took a C++ class, and that was kind of my introduction to things.
Right. And so do you remember the first thing that you programmed or that you made that you were kind of proud of? That, I guess, in school or something like that?
Yeah. I can't really remember any of the school projects, but I guess, AutoPad, that was the first app I built. And that was kind of my first foray into trying to build something that's like real and useful to people. It was my first foray into iOS as well. And so that took me a while to get together because, like we said, I spent a lot of time on YouTube watching tutorials, a lot of time Googling things, trying to find the answers to various questions. And when AutoPad first came out, it was a really pretty simple app. It just had the 12 buttons, and it didn't have the set list mode, and it just had a sound picker in the bottom right corner of that window. So I've just kind of added to it, over the past few years. But that was the first thing that I made that I put out in the world and that I really good about. And it's come a long ways since then. That was in 2017 when I first released AutoPad.
I feel like a shit host because, look, I don't actually own it. That's terrible, isn't it?
Oh, it's all good. It has a fairly specific use.
Do you want to explain what it does for folks?
Yeah. So one of the venues I was able to play music in growing up was in bands in church, and in this kind of worship style of music, harmonically it's fairly straightforward. You can actually just have a drone playing in the background through the whole song. And it's pretty in fashion, I would say, in the worship style of music. And so my app, playing keyboards, I kind of knew that, it'd be nice to have a tool that would do this really easily, 12 buttons, and then just have a pad that plays, for as long as you want. And so that was the first thing. It was just 12 buttons and then 10 little sounds you could choose from. I recorded little samples and set them so that they loop seamlessly. And that was it. And, it's become pretty well adopted, I think, by people who play worship music. So that is, it's kind of kept me motivated to keep learning and kind of keep, pushing my skills and even do some more of my own, now what I'm doing things that are really new and really different from ZOA or from AutoPad.
Well, it's got good reviews. That's a good thing because tell me, let's talk about this while I'm sitting right on the ratings and review system because there's a lot of things I want to ask you as a developer. So ratings and reviews, do you think the system's broken? We'll start off with that on the App Store.
Oh, no, I don't think it's broken. It is kind of frustrating to get a 1-star review. I think what I really don't like is when people leave a 1-star rating, but no review. And it's like, okay, well, I can't help you, right? But if you leave a 1-star review, then I can come and say, oh, hey, to get in contact with me and I'll try to fix your problem. But I do think there's enough people out there that are willing to leave good reviews that I think overall the scores and the ratings, hopefully they tend toward the right rating. So I wouldn't say it's broken, but there are definitely frustrating aspects to it where you don't have an opportunity to respond if it's just a rating. So that's one thing that frustrates me.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, the one thing doing my show and trying to reach out to so many developers, what I would love to see on the App Store, and you may disagree with this, is as well as the opportunity to leave a rating and a review, the opportunity to get in contact for bug reporting, or just to make it a more easier way to notice, get in contact with a developer, and then from there, if you click on it, it would put down just to make contact and then or leave a bug report. I think that would hopefully take away that, because I do see it a lot where people leave 1 star and go, it didn't work, and you know, and there's no recourse for it. Once you're left with that review, it's like a black mark against your name where you don't get the opportunity a lot of the, and I do see, so you can respond to these, can't you?
Yeah, but you know, you don't know if the person will come and update their review. So the best you can maybe do is say, like, note, I fixed this problem, so that someone who reads it in the future will see that. And I think you're right. Like, Apple does require you to have a support page, but they don't make it super obvious in the App Store listing. So yeah, I think you're right. It would be nice to see that more prominent on the App Store page.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, because from my experience doing this show, you know, it's very rare that I come across a developer who's, you know, fucked. Everyone's so nice, and you know, and you know, we all. I want to get developers' apps out to people so they can see them and shine a spotlight on them. Because hey, we live in a world where nobody wants to read the fucking instructions. They want to see it. They want to have it now, instantly, and they want to see somebody make something with it. And so, yeah, and it does disappoint me because, you know, I'll look at some apps that I've reviewed sometimes. I head over and see the reviews and ratings and go, oh, man, but that was fixed. And, like, you see a review that says, but this doesn't work. And it's like, but it was fixed 2 updates ago, man, and that's stuck there forever. It's so sad. I'm not a developer, and I feel sad for you guys that it goes on.
Yeah, well, I guess just one thing I'd throw out is that, yeah, if you like an app, take the time to leave a review. It really does help a lot to have the people that like it actually leave a review. I know it takes time, but I'm always really grateful when people do that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like, and this is probably another thing that developers don't get to say. With YouTube channels, like every day, we were talking about this before the show started. Leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and all that wank. You don't get a chance to really say that when you drop an app. It's like, hey, you know, please leave if you like this, just leave a nice review, please. Like, so do so, folks. If something really does float your boat and you're making great music with it, let people know, hey, I made an album using, you know, this app. It was really instrumental in me making this album. Because you know, how many of you sitting in the chat right now or watching on the replay, think about it. How many things have you released where there's been instrumental apps that have, like, made the song? You know, sure, you're writing the song, but without these amazing apps, it's a sad thing. And I want to talk, and somebody's just put this comment, which I was just about to say. It was my next thing I was going to bring up. And I'll bring the thing up on the screen. Bo Schaefers, is that your name? Yep. Ryan was super responsive on SDS-x problems loading in Cubasis. And that was one of the first things I noticed, because you sent me a code to do SDS. We'll talk about SDS now as well. And you were absolutely bent over backwards to help out, and if there were any problems, and I didn't have any problems, so I was cool. I didn't need your help, but I think you've got a what's it called, a Discord channel as well, where you were helping people on there, yeah. So like, what is the best way? Hang on. How do you approach helping people? Like, does it get overwhelming? How do you get it out there that people can reach out to you?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's honestly something I'm still trying to figure out. Because, yeah, just recently I've been able to actually kind of take the leap and go full-time into this, which I'm, like, really excited about. But I am trying to think about, okay, well, how do I connect with the people that are out there using AutoPad, using SDS-x? And you're like we said, it's fairly limited what you get with the App Store in terms of all you have is, and people do find that, you know, and send emails. But I am trying to have more of a presence on YouTube. Like for ZOA, I recorded a bunch of tutorial videos, and I think that really helped. when I went to launch that, like, so people had something to go and see, and then they can leave a comment if they have a question. So, I'm spending most of my time on YouTube and Twitter right now, but I'm still figuring it out, really.
Yeah, I wish I had a Twitter. That would make my life so much easier. But as we discussed, I got banned from Twitter, so I can't reach out to people. Yeah, and I have to admit, when I did my ZOA review, if it wasn't for your really cool videos, I probably wouldn't have understood a lot of, not a lot of the stuff, just some of it, because I didn't really know much about the whole John Conway's Game of Life, but I fell down a rabbit hole with that too, because I spent more time trying to understand the Game of Life and the way all of that worked, more so than the app, and which I found super refreshing, because normally it's like, go through the interface, do all this stuff and learn all these parts. But I spent like an entire evening reading about John Conway's Game of Life, Wikipedia pages, finding all the patterns and stuff and experimenting with them. And that's what I found really fun about that. But we'll circle back to that. So let's talk about SDS-x, because I did a show on that too. So it's a drum machine. How long did it take to put together something like that app?
Oh, man. Well, it's hard to say, because I spent a lot of my time working on SDS-x while I had a full-time job. So I spent, time in the mornings and time in the evenings working on that, but it did consume a lot of my free time. I think when I first talked to Corey is my partner who I work with SDS-x on, and he helps bring a lot of like the vision of how the app's going to look and behave, and I sort of implement it. Our first call, like talking about, okay, we're going to do SDS-x 2.0, was probably December of 2020. And I sort of slowly started working on it throughout 2021 and spent a really good amount of time on it in this summer.
Yep. So, what's the process of, so you're working, are you like remotely doing this? Were you remotely putting this together? And is it as granular as like, hand drawing diagrams of how you want things to look? What is the process of trying to come up with a UI for something like this?
Well, I use some frameworks that Apple provides. I think there's a lot of different ways to build UIs, but I use a framework that Apple provides called UI Kit. And you can basically create views, and you can set all these different parameters on the views, such as the corner radius or background color and transparency. And I've gotten pretty comfortable working with that. So all of my UIs are, generated either with UI Kit or some custom like drawing that you can do with, I think it's like Core Graphics. So there's not like any vector. I should actually say that the buttons, the buttons that are images, those are vector art images, but the majority of it is programmed,
and for those
interface elements.
A lot of people here, who watch the show, they make music. They use your apps to create music, so they don't know what goes into the whole process of development. I myself have a developer's account. I don't know why. It used to be so I could just download the latest iOS updates. Yeah,
get those beta versions.
All right. So now that we're on this, because I'm going to skip around a fair bit today. So I'll give you my history. I got the first iPhone here in Australia, even though it didn't work here in Australia, because it was only on AT&T over in the US, and we don't have that. But I was so keen to get it because I was a jailbreaker, and I wanted to jailbreak. And then I got an iPhone 3G and was jailbreaking quite heavily, and writing a lot of tweaks and stuff back in the day. And like so I got a little bit of an understanding of how it worked, and I constantly had to get latest firmwares for the software because Apple was so against jailbreakers. They were continuously trying to be ahead of the game and stopping us from jailbreaking. There was no App Store back there either. But these days, they've made iOS open to the public. And what is your opinion on Apple doing that and leaving, because they release it at the developers conference, and then they say, all right, so here it is for the developers, and then a short time after they release it for the general public. What do you think about that, them releasing that to the public? Do you think it's beneficial or not with iOS?
So you're saying like release to the developers before the
I'll
the
give you my take on
or?
it. I think they should stop releasing it to the public. I think ever since they started doing it, iOS has struggled. It's taken a longer time for there to be solid releases once it come out. And the reason is because the general public don't seem to report bugs where developers do.
I see. Yeah. Okay, I see what you mean. Well, one thing that's frustrating for me is that I'm actually, I don't know if I should admit this, but I'm kind of slow to update my device. And so I'll get emails from users that will try out the beta before I have. And, they're like, hey, it doesn't work on iOS 13 or whatever it is. And I haven't even taken a look at it yet. And I'm like, well, iOS 13 or whatever it happens to be, like, it's still in beta. So I'm not, we're not supporting that yet, but it's good to know when there are issues.
I refuse to update my iOS until at least normally 3 months after it's been released. It just is what it is because I mean, as somebody who uses it every day, I don't want to risk something going wrong. And it's not, and so I feel really strongly about this. I just seem to think there's too many people who want to rush to get the latest update. For, say, with iOS 15, everybody wants to get on the beta, and they all want to just say, I'm on the beta, and it's more like a pissing contest, it seems like, with people, where, like, I'm already on it, and I'm already testing it, and it seems to clog the network, but nobody's sending any bug reports. And what's the point of being a beta tester if you're not sending bug reports? It does my head in. I get so upset about it. It doesn't.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I definitely hear what you're saying. People like to be on the inside of the loop, I guess.
And when you're on the inside, it's not much different than being on the outside. it's just you've got more problems to deal with, So getting back to SDS-x, so you went all through the summer putting this together, and so was there a what's it like with something like that, with the elimination of bugs yourself before you actually put it out to a beta? Is it a process of elimination between the two of you going back and forward? Were there any substantial things that you come across that you have to work on? I'm just trying to get an idea of what it's like to work on these things.
Yeah, well, I was working with Corey on that, and he was able to take the time to kind of thoroughly go through the app, use it, really kind of push it to its limits, especially when we were developing the sequencer aspect of it. And so having him kind of finding and identifying those issues for me really helped me out, because I think when you're writing code, you sort of just have it in your mind, like, oh, I'm going to type this, and like this is what it's going to do, and it's going to work. But that's rarely how it ends up working out. So it was really helpful to have someone else looking at it and really being really careful and thorough about it. So definitely that one was both of us working together.
Once it was released, so did you do a beta for it once you had it done?
Yeah, we had it mostly done, and Corey had the idea of starting a Discord, and we were able to bring in probably 50 or 60 people into the Discord to try it out, and so that helped us to. I'm still fairly new to doing like AUV3 plugins, so that's something that we had to spend a lot of time kind of working out issues there, and I'm still learning things about AUV3. But it's definitely helpful to have. I think the Discord was a good thing for us because we were able to communicate directly with people before actually releasing the
Right.
update.
And so I got a hold of this app and absolutely loved it when it dropped. What has been the feedback from SDS-x since you've released it?
Oh, it's been mostly positive. It was great to hear. Corey and I, we initially developed it kind of from the viewpoint that people would use it as a standalone app, but it's been fun to see more people using it in hosts like AUM or even Cubasis. And yeah, I think overall people really like the sequencer, which is good because that's something that we put a lot of time and thought into, that we wanted it to be something that was unique. And people also like the sounds, which also we're proud of those. Corey was the one who recorded all the drum samples in the app.
And the ability to import stuff was really important. I felt I am right. So, I mean, when I showed off the app, I imported. I'm pretty sure I did this. I imported like a acoustic drum kit in there, and I've even done some blast beats, some death metal stuff in there as well, which I didn't expect that I could do. And I really love doing that kind of thing and pushing it to that limit, because I think people look at these apps sometimes and see drum machine or pads and stuff and think, oh, it's just electronic music. But it's not. As long as you can find whatever samples you want and put in there, you can put them in there and you can mess with them and do whatever you want. So don't ever... the thing is, what I try and do on the show is say, look, here's the app, here's what it's meant to do, and here's some things that it's not meant to do, and let's see if it can do it. I think that's more fun, pushing it outside of its comfort zone to see what it can do that you don't imagine.
Yeah, and I mean, that's one of the things that's so rewarding about making apps, I think, is that you put something out there and, I have a certain idea about how I want to use the app, but then people get out there and use it in ways that, I never think of. And that's a really cool experience to see that happen.
I'm going to take a second to say hi to people who are here in the chat. I want to thank you all for being here today. So let's just scroll through some names. Pain to Get, Audible Video, Thomas Christ. Who else do I have here? Ed B. Metal, SM Borthwick, hello to you. Joe Glenn, hello to... who else do we have here? Deep Gravity, hello, my friend. Hello to Hannah King, Bear. Hello too, as I scroll through this immense list. Thank you all for being here. It's I love you guys for hanging out with me today. And it's only one more show you're going to have to deal with. My toothless tooth. Who else do I have here? I saw Russ has popped in. I'll get down to Russ and we'll have a quick chat about Russ. Audible Video. I said Andy already, I think. Andy Goldsby. Black Covers. Hello to you, my friend. I just finished a project with Black Covers. I got to send him a video. Barry Glenn, Dragon Lady Experience. Let's see who else I have here. I'll scroll. Timothy I saw as well. Thanks for being here, Timothy. If you've got any questions as well, please type the word question in caps that you've got for Ryan, and I'll try and get to them. If you want to know anything about development or anything like that. SM Borthwick says, I picked up SDS-x after Jade's stream. I've only played around with it so far, but I really like it. Nice work, Ryan. There you go. Instant feedback. If only Apple...
Thank you. Yeah, it's so great to see all these kind words.
If only Apple was as easy to get the feedback like that so instantly. I saw Russ. Where's Russ? Where are you, Russ? I'm trying to find. You're in Turkey. Hi, SM. Long journey, but relaxing now. Oh, Turkey in the oven. So he's in the US. Russ is one of my frequent guest who makes music on this show, and he uses what's so cool about Russ, Ryan, he's been making music for a really long time. He's been on this show a bunch of times talking about how he makes music. He uses apps the best way. He buys the apps that he likes, and he sits on them, and then he'll look through his app list on his iPad and say, all right, I've got this one, and this one that I have never used. I'm going to use those 3 apps and make my next song using them. So they always get cycled and used, and he's very clever with buying apps. What are your opinions on the way that apps, at the moment, we're so like blessed with apps. There's so many of them that it can get a bit overwhelming for people. And I call it ASS, or App Acquisition Syndrome. So there's gas and there's ass. Gas together.
And ass.
But it can be quite overwhelming, and I see it doing the show that people sit there and go, oh, my God, there's so many, and I don't have all the money.
Yeah.
What's your opinion on that?
Well, I think people should make careful decisions about what they buy. I guess one thing that's nice is that having app gas is probably a lot less costly than having like hardware synth gas or like guitar pedal gas or something. So I think one of the things great about iOS is how much you can get for your money. Although I guess one thing I'm learning about is kind of the developer side, like the economic side of it here. But I think, it's tough. And as consumers, we have to kind of navigate and look at reviews, look at streams, and it's a lot to go through. But I mean, I don't know. I think it's great that there's so much out there because we're seeing like so many people's ideas about what if a delay was like this, or, what if a sequencer did this? So that's fun to have such a rich environment, but it does as a lot for consumers to go through. So I don't know if
I try and say it on the show. I try and always preempt people on the show because I know some apps like, hey, they're $60. And I always I have a catchphrase. I say, hey, apps aren't Pokemon. You don't need to collect them all. But that's what this show's for, so you can make informed decisions and buy the things that work for you. I've got a question from Gregory O'Sullivan. Oh, man, I'm going to love this one. How much effort is required for developers to move from audio bus or Interapp audio to an AUV3?
A lot of work. I think because SDS-x, we originally made it as just a standalone app. And, if you go on the Audio Bus forum, you see a lot of interest in having the AUV3 plugins. And that was something I wanted to get into and learn more about. But it really did, I had to, I had all my code in one project in Xcode, which is the software you use to develop apps on. But I had to just make a new project and almost start from scratch, rebuilding it from this kind of AUV3 paradigm, if you will. And I was able to kind of bring a lot of stuff over. So it's not like I'm typing out the whole thing again. But you do just have to really restructure the whole project. So it's a pretty big effort, So it's great to see. I haven't tried it out yet, but I know the Animoog app, that was one that people wanted to come to AUV3 for a long time. And so it's cool to see that happen. But I'm sure it was, a big effort on their part to bring that to fruition.
I did a show on it last week, and wow, it's really, really good. Unfortunately, I was on painkillers during that show, and I didn't do the show I wanted to do. I kind of got a bit sidetracked through it. So I'm definitely going to have to go back and do another one just to go through a little bit more of it. Hello, Pete Johns, who's joined us. Congratulations to Pete Johns as well, who yesterday got 100,000 subscribers. What an effort. Yep, he's
nice work.
He does so much for creators with his channel, Studio Live Today. And if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be doing a channel. So I have to put that out there. So good to see you, Pete. Yeah, look, it does take a lot of work to rejig these apps to make them go from something to something else, from inter-app audio to something else. And I think people don't understand because you don't get to see behind the scenes of just how much it takes. And there is this incredible... I don't do the Audio Bus forums. I'll just say this now. I have an account, but I only use it to reach out to some developers. And I'm not specifically saying that particular forum. I think forums in general can be quite snarky and you know what I mean? It can get a bit so that's why I don't go there. And being trans, I just don't want to go there. But this hunger for AUV3, I see in a lot of places. Sometimes it makes me scratch my head so much and think, if you put as much effort into worrying about if something's AUV3 into just using what you already have as an inter-app audio, you probably make more music. There's so much. It's focus on it that it's like, relax.
Yeah, and it's tough to know. I mean, it's exciting to see, on iOS, it's a really cool ecosystem to just be able to bring all your plugins together. But it's kind of hard to know where it's going, like especially, because it's an Apple-only format, and it's really not widely adopted on desktop yet. So it's going to be interesting to see what the future of AUV3 is, and if it'll get more support on desktop. Because Apple is now making it like really easy to take an existing iPad app and port it over to run on the Mac, so that if the DAW developers on desktop are willing, I think they'll be able to get a lot of AUV3 plugins that work pretty well. But yeah, it's just hard to know like what's sort of the end game for AUV3.
Yeah. And Apple is so secretive as a company, that they keep their cards close to their chest, and unfortunately it affects everybody, including you guys who are the bread and butter, because when the iPhone, as I said, when I first got the iPhone, there was no app store, and you could pretty much, open Safari, open your mail, send a text. Hey, they were great phones, but it was boring as batshit after you'd played with everything. So do they, like, I'm curious to ask this. Is there a roadmap that Apple have given you, the developers, for what's happening with inter-app audio? Because, as we heard, 3 or 4 years ago, there is apparently a roadmap to get rid of it. But what's happening? It's not. Nothing. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's strange, to be honest. I don't know too much, but I remember there was that big announcement like, we're deprecating inter-app audio. And then it's like, well, what does that mean? Because it's still around. And certainly when things get deprecated, term is just like, I think the intent of the term is to say, like, don't do new stuff with this, but it will still work for a while. We're not going to just break it, but, we're not going to, like, be developing it actively. So I honestly know how much longer it's going to be around for, because it's still, like, you can still sort of add it as a feature in your apps. But we'll just have to see.
I've got another question here from Audible Video, who's written, what do you feel about app pricing regarding encouraging parody or pro apps?
Okay, so like the disparity between like iOS prices and desktop prices?
Yeah. I'm guessing so, if you want to clarify, Audible.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I guess the stuff that I'm trying to build, I'm not trying to build like a DAW for iOS. So if I was going to do that, I'd want to charge enough to feel like I was getting rewarded for it. But I think what I'm charging, I'm pretty comfortable with where my apps are priced. I'm not like thinking, I need to be doubling the price or tripling the price. That's not really in my mind at this point because, there's plenty of people out there that are purchasing them. And so I feel good about sort of like the rate that my downloads are happening at. But, maybe the pricing might need a change in order to entice like some of these desktop players to move in. So, if that's what we want, then maybe we'll have to kind of be willing to pay some more desktop prices. But at least for me, I'm happy with where my own prices are set right now.
I think that's part of the reason that I constantly try to put out that message of, apps aren't Pokemon. You don't need them all because there are price changes coming. You can feel it in the wind. I mean, I think a lot of people got, I know I got excited when they announced iOS 15 and were like, or when they actually announced, hey, with the new chip, that, you're going to be able to have iPad apps on your Mac and stuff like that. I know I got excited, but at the same time realized, hang on a minute, this is Apple. This isn't going to just be like that. And it isn't. That's not the way it is right now. So I want to ask just on that, when you release an app, is there like some magic checkbox that you get offered to say, would you like this to be available as a Mac app as well? What's the process to be able to have your app as a Mac app as well? Like, do you have to opt out? How does it work?
Yeah, I believe that if you do nothing, your app will be available on M1 Macs by default. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's how it is. If you do nothing, it's available on M1 Macs by default. If you want to support like Intel Macs, then you would need to do some work in your code and make sure you're supporting those. And actually for ZOA, that's the first one I've done where I actually released a Mac app alongside of it. And so I just developed those in tandem from the beginning, and it was really easy to make those available. So I think, and it's not too hard from a developer standpoint to make things work on Mac. It's mainly some of the UI stuff that you have to kind of work out and make sure you don't like show a window, but then make it so they can't dismiss the window or something like that. That's some of the stuff I had to work out for ZOA.
I'm only recently a Mac owner myself, so I've been using iOS predominantly as an artist for the longest time since early or late 2000s. So going to a Mac, I found it incredibly hard to get back to using a mouse. And I keep reaching out to my my Mac Mini. Well, I have a Mac Mini, and I've got like I've got a screen, and I'm reaching out to it, just going, "No, stop! I can't help it." So that's one of the struggles I'm having. Even though I love that the opportunity to be able to do that is going to happen, and I'll tell you honestly, when I first got my M1, it's an app, and I can't think of what it's called on I think iMazing it's called, where you can back up your iOS device. It's kind of one of these third-party things. But what you could do back then, I think they've stopped it now, you could plug in your iPad and then pull down all of the apps that were on your iPad onto your Mac, even if they weren't made for Mac, and try them out. And oh my God, at least 80% of them sucked. It was such a horrible experience. And it was like, wow, this has a lot of work to go before they can get it right.
Yeah. And there's so many things we're used to doing on touch devices that we can't really do on the desktop. And one actual example is in SDS-x, Corey and I have these like user interface actions where you actually have to touch and hold. So like you press like the pattern select button, and while your finger is held down, you have to select like the pattern that you want. And I sort of realized like, you can't do that on a Mac. So you'd have to have like some kind of hotkeys. So some of those gestures, and maybe that, touch and hold thing, Apple maybe discourages that kind of interaction, but Corey and I actually really liked it. Certain things where you have to use two hands for.
Do you think Apple are eventually heading to and I'm just asking this in general, do you think Apple are eventually heading to a MacBook where you can touch the screen?
I don't know. I guess my thought at this point is that probably not. I feel like the iPad and the MacBook are like distinct enough that I don't think that they're going to try to merge them, but who knows?
It's kind of discouraging, hearing a developer go, who knows? I don't know. Nobody knows. It is a bit like that with Apple.
I mean, that's the thing. I do, like, I'm just sort of sitting here in my office and I don't really know what Apple's up to. And even like with the iOS announcements, I really need to like stay up to date more. But usually it'll be like some of my friends is like, did you hear about this new iOS feature right after, WWDC or something? And I'm like, oh, I got to go look at that and like see what's coming. So I'm probably not the best like tech analyst or tech speculator.
No one is, I think, for Apple. Like, I've tried to do it. I mean, every year at each announcement, we sit here and go, Logic coming for iOS, Logic, and each year it's like, no Logic. It's never coming. So let's talk about ZOA and the development for that. What was the time frame that, how did you, all right, so even before we go into that, how did you come up for the idea to incorporate this incredibly unique way to sequence music by using John Conway's Game of Life?
Yeah, well, I'd seen just in, reading about synths and browsing the internet and watching YouTube, I'd seen like the Game of Life doing musical things before, but never really saw something that I really like inspired me. And so I was like, I feel like I have sort of a take on this, like a take on the Game of Life and a take on how it could generate music. And so that was, kind of the initial idea. And then like for SDS-x, I was working on that this summer and I had to figure out all of this stuff for like sending MIDI in like an accurate way at the right time and all of that. And when I had kind of worked all that stuff out, then I was like, well, I'll try using that with this concept for the Game of Life that I have. And so I actually worked on it kind of alongside of SDS-x for a couple months. And it was, it was fun enough that I thought I really need to put this out there.
And what was the development time frame for this kind of thing? So do you find that you're getting shorter at doing these things because you've got these templates set up in Xcode and all that? Is it easier to make these things? Was this one a lot easier to throw together? Throw together, I say.
Yeah. Well, yeah, ZOA was definitely a lot easier to put together because overall it's just a more simple app. And I am starting to reap the benefit of like all the things I've worked on in the past, having code for a specific task that I know works well and being able to sort of easily bring that in. So it really was a couple of months, I think, alongside SDS-x. So it wasn't like a full-time effort. And then after Corey and I put out SDS-x, I was like, okay, I need a break from that. And I went back and looked at the code for ZOA, and I was like, oh, this is almost done. I should finish this up and get it out there.
How easy is it to come up with new ideas for the next app to stay ahead of the curve? I mean, I see sometimes, for an example, this is I don't even know what year it is. I think it's this year. We had Atom come out, and then Helium come out, and they were both so similar to each other in what they did. And then there's this battle between them being on the betas for both of like, this one got updated and then this one got updated, and they was like they were trying to outshine each other because they were the two these new unique apps. So is that something that's in the back of your mind that, you know, the next thing that you've got to release has to shine and be stand out than everything else? How hard is it to keep ahead of the game?
Oh, I mean, it's a little bit of a worry, but I think with ZOA, I'm kind of starting to find my stride a little bit. And I think even, you know, I mean, because there's so many apps out there, right? That you could sort of say, like, why even make a new one, right? They're like, we have everything we need. But the way I kind of feel is that you have to like believe that your idea about it is worth something, and that like you can present a creative take on it, right? And so I think, you know, even though like Game of Life has been done in music before, I knew that I felt comfortable doing it, and I wasn't worried about, oh, is it going to be better than these other ones or worse than it? Because I felt like, no, I'm kind of presenting my idea of how it should be, and I think it's going to be unique enough that some people will like it. And so I think that's kind of what I'm trying to hold up. When I have an idea, really try to think about what it is I have, like my idea about making it something special.
Yep. Getting back to, I want to talk about updates, because a lot of people seem to expect that, and it's it's a tough one. Because I'm trying to, you know, ask questions where I don't want you to throw Apple in the shit or anything like that. And I don't want to shit on Apple at the same time, because, you know, we make that's the one thing, we make amazing stuff. You develop amazing apps for us to make amazing music, and we forget just how easy that it is to do all this stuff. You know, I grew up in recording studios and buying, you know, old gear like this back in the day to record music, and you often forget we've come so far. But in relation to updates, because it's become an expected thing that you release an app and there's going to be updates. And in my mind, I think of updates like, okay, so updates are for fixing bugs, because that's what happens with, especially video games. All right, let's start with video games. So say we'll use Cyberpunk as an example, because that's an absolutely terrible game that was promised. We were promised the earth with that game. It was released and it turned out to be a box of shit. But with video games, like, that's what updates are for, to fix the bugs. And when there's an additional things added to video games, you pay for these things. But with iOS apps, it seems that developers are left with this on their backs, that yes, do the updates to fix bugs, but also add new features at no cost. And you're working your ass off to add these new features, and you're not getting any extra money for it. And then when you do, like, when there are companies out there who say, all right, well, we're going to release a new version of this app and do the things that we wanted to update, but we can't because of the old code. People go, why didn't you just update the old one? And why do I have to pay for something new? Tell me about the frustration of that. Is it frustrating for you?
Well, you know, for SDS-x, for example, it was such a big effort to kind of port it over to AV3 that we did ask people to rebuy. And we went to a different model. We went to like a free download plus an in-app purchase. So, you know, it's just experimentation. And overall, like, people were pretty positive about that. And, you know, there might be some things I'd do differently if I was doing that transition again next time. But I think, you know, for major updates like SDS-x, we definitely wanted to have some buy-in on this next round to kind of make it worth our while. But that was such a big update. You know, I think about, I guess, ZOA. ZOA is a much simpler app, and I have ideas of new things that will come to ZOA. But that's, you know, that I think is a pretty well, like, it's sort of set as a product.
Yep.
And so I don't think anything is going to come for ZOA where it's like brand new, now it will bake you a cake or something. So that one I feel, so it is, I guess you just sort of have to weigh like the effort that you put into it and hope for the best.
Yeah, I feel really bad sometimes when I see some of the complaints of people going, but hang on a minute, like, but I don't want to pay for this again. And it's like, sometimes I think it's justified. There are certain companies out there who do, I'm definitely not going to name them or anything like that, who do release apps and you think, oh man, you could have just updated that seriously. Instead, you've gone for a whole new model. And some of the bigger companies, but they at the same time they run on, like, I think people forget, like, you're only a one-man show, but you've got there are these bigger companies who have PR teams and marketing teams and UI coders, and so there's a lot more mouths to feed sometimes, and so that's where you're going to see price things are a little bit more expensive. Have you been with ZOA? Have you been surprised by because I think it's awesome. Like, I've used it so much. I just think it's one of the best apps of the year. And
Thank you.
It's what I really like about it, and I implore people to go and check it out, is that so I use it a lot in my shows to demonstrate other apps. It's super easy for that, and I love those kind of apps. Plus, what I tend to do is I just set it sometimes on my iPad and I go to sleep with it just playing random stuff.
That's great. I'd love to hear that.
It's beautiful for meditation and just really calming stuff. And I don't have to go in the App Store and buy some stupid app that's like relaxing music at $9.99 a year subscription. I can just add any app to it and just whatever sound, and it just does its own thing. And it just keeps going. And it's really, I think it's really wonderful. So, had you thought, like, when you were making it, that people would use it for something like that?
No, I didn't think that, but I did know, and part of my idea behind it is that it does have the ability to sort of generate patterns indefinitely. So I knew that, and one of the reasons I wanted to make it is it's something that I could put on and have it go and play the synths for me. And then I could kind of get in and turn the knobs and explore the sound. So I had that in mind. But it's been really cool to see all the different ways that people are using it, like with hardware, with different instruments, that I don't own. Just really cool to see the creativity people have.
Yeah, awesome. So where are we? We're at 9:18, so we're close to the end of the show, and I have to head off to the dentist soon to get my face fixed. So have you been, since releasing ZOA, I know you've been doing updates for it, so you've added some really cool little features. I really love that you added the ability to go down another full down to 24 instead of 12 for bass lines. I really love that. That's really good for creating those multiple pieces and having a bass line, very distinct bass line. And I've found it really good too for drum patterns as well. So you are continuously doing updates for it. Have you been thinking about what's next? And obviously I don't want to have you expose any of your ideas because I know they're precious. But I think I saw Audible Video ask a question. Let me scroll up. Question: are you doing another sequencer next, or a synth? Is what he asks.
Oh yeah, I mean, I definitely have ideas right now that I'm working on. I have one new project that's coming together pretty well, but it's not really anywhere close to being able to show or put out for beta testing. But I can say that my ideas right now are mainly still in the MIDI kind of vein, kind of creative takes on MIDI sequencing and modulation. So that's what I'm working on. And I do have a few other ideas for maybe bigger, longer term projects. So what I try to do, I guess, with the ideas is write them down when they come.
Yep.
Because with programming, the execution takes a lot of time. And so I got to, capture the ideas when I can, and then just sort of do the follow through as I'm able.
And now that you've started like your YouTube channel where you're doing live streams playing music, are you starting to like? Do you actually write songs, or is it just meddling around on playing keyboards? Do you have what I'm getting at? Do you have aspirations to release music on somewhere like down the bottom underneath you, on somewhere like DistroKid? Who, if you'd like to sign up to DistroKid, use the link that is down in the description below, and you get 7% off DistroKid. There you go. Have you thought about releasing your own music at some stage down the line?
Well, I am just starting with the live streaming for track and field, and I'm having a lot of fun with that. And I think I've actually, I think in the past, I've tried recording my own music more, and it hasn't gone so well for me. I have a lot of respect for people that are able to stick with it, and it's a lot of work. But what I am really enjoying about the live streaming right now is the kind of, I get to just be there, interact with the sound, do some exploring, do some improvising. And so it kind of helps me. I see it as mainly just being expressive in the moment kind of thing, and just trying to share it with people. So that's what I'm interested in right now. And I think the app ideas that I have, my ideas for them are kind of around being able to perform and have some kind of live experience. So that it's not on my radar to do any recording at this point, but who knows what the future holds.
A question I wanted to ask you: do you use your own apps?
I've been having a lot of fun with ZOA. And part of the reason I made ZOA is because I wanted to use it to sequence my keyboards. And so that was, it's been a lot of fun on the track and field live stream. You can't see the iPad, but I think it is sequencing my OP1 at some point in there. And so I do enjoy using it to sequence synthesizers. So that, it's fun, but it really is really interesting because, I just work from the other side. So I put so much in to building the app and very little time into using it.
Yeah.
So with AutoPad and SDS-x, that's why it's great if people email me if they have bugs, because I'm not out there using it as much as other people are. But ZOA is one that I enjoy using more myself.
Yeah, so it's always something I think about because, because I deal with so many developers who I just adore working with developers because, and so many of you are so kind to give me codes to give away. And I just want to put that out there. You are one of them as well. And, I'm ever so grateful for it. And just so people know, I don't know if people understand what goes on between how I work with a developer to do a show. There may be some people out there who think that, I sell my soul to you guys and go yeah, you send me some codes and I'll give you the best review possible. And it's not like that at all. I often reach out to developers for apps that I think are going to be worthwhile to do. And if there's an app that I see come out that I don't really think is much, I think is not cool, I just won't do it. But in saying that, that doesn't mean that just because I haven't done an app on the show that I don't think it's cool. Sometimes, in rare occasions, developers don't get back to me because, hey, people are busy, but it's never a pay-for-play kind of thing because the thing is, too, I get your apps and I have to sit there myself and learn how to use them to go on the show and come up with a way creatively to not only, here's the thing, this is why I asked about if you use your apps, because I get the apps and I've got to show them in a light that not necessarily how I would maybe use them, but kind of paint a picture for people on how they would maybe use them and get people thinking about how they would use them. So it's it's an interesting way we feed off each other, like leeches in a way.
Yeah. Well, I got to say, I really appreciated the ZOA stream that you did, and I could tell that you had like taken the time to look at the app and how it works. And I came in for that, and I thought it was great. You know, I was like, this is a great showcase for how ZOA works, and it's something I can even share with other people. You know, so I want to say I appreciate the work that you put into it. It comes across.
Well, thank you so much. And, thank you for coming on and talking about all of this. I'm going to hit you up with a question now, which I find interesting, having a developer on the show. What are some of the apps from other developers that you like to use? And I'll bring up the screen and maybe do a search for them.
Well, I guess I'll start with the non-music related app. And then I'll get to the music ones. I mean, Notability is a big app that I use, for drawing ideas, writing notes, doing little scratch pad math and unit conversions. And so that's, something that I use a lot. And I'll even do some journaling in the app. I used to journal in like physical books, but then I started doing it on my iPad, and it's working pretty well. So I really like using Notability.
That thing's been around for ages. Notability's been around for so long, and I don't have it on my iPad at the moment because I've started using Notes instead. I think I only got rid of it like about 2 months ago, just because I've started using Notes more often. But it's so good to see an app like this that has been around for so long. And look, it just got its last update a week ago.
Yeah, it's excellent. And Apple really won me over with the Apple Pencil. I really like the feel of that.
It's wonderful.
Yeah. And as far as like music apps go, AUM, I really love using AUM as a host, since I like to make music in sort of a live and exploratory way. That I like spending a lot of time in there, and I'll do a lot of testing in AUM. So I use that both in my work, in my debugging, and also in my own like making music for pleasure time. So that's been a big one. I love how you can just bring apps and plugins in together and route things really easily. I love the MIDI routing in AUM, and I love that it's focused on live use, which is kind of how I am enjoying making music right now.
It's interesting AUM because you see a lot of people say, but what is it? Is it a DAW? Is it? And it's like, who cares? Stop trying to stop trying to label it. It's amazing is what it is. And, I think Paul from Four Pockets this year alone has released 2 apps, or even 3 if you count. So like Neon, to be able to record in it now is sick, and just to move everything. That's really cool. And things like Helium and Atom have really given it more of a DAW feel, which is really cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I'd seen a couple of his videos, and it's amazing that he's taken the time to build some apps that are designed for using with AUM, and it shows that it's an interesting workflow. A lot of people are interested in it.
It took me a long time to get into it, to be honest. Like I owned it for probably a year and a half, and I think I opened it 3 times. It was like every time I opened it, I was overwhelmed going, but what is it? And that was the mindset. I fell into that mindset of trying to define what it was. And then once I realized, you know what? I think it is what I want it to be. And once you think like that, then it becomes your tool to be whatever you want it to be. And it's great for the shows to show off apps. It's bar none the best.
Yeah.
Yes. Anything else?
Well, I'll tell you the first synth app I remember buying was a Sunriser synth.
I don't have this. Is it available still?
I believe so. I think they brought it to AUV3. I think it's with a Z.
It is too. You're right.
Sunriser with a Z. So that was one of the first synths I bought, the first synth I bought on iOS, and I remember just being amazed. This one I was, I was younger, and I had no idea that I would be developing apps one day, but I just remember loving that you could have a synth on your iPad that sounded really cool. So that's a fun one.
And I don't have it. I'm terrible. God, there's only so many apps you can have. Like my poor iPad has so many apps at the moment. I mean, look at this mess. It's just
that's great ridiculous. Though. I mean, I guess, yeah, just yeah. And you got to focus on what works for you, right? You can't have
exactly.
them all.
And the reason I have them all is because I do shows, and that's the only reason they're sitting on that.
Yeah.
And Audible Video said Sunrise is nearly 10 years old. Again, staying power. And if people are going back to it, they're doing something right. And even there, look at this. They updated this only 2 months ago.
Yeah, 2 months ago.
So that's dedication. And, so this is another reason why I do say continuously support these developers. Pay the money. If you're going to get, and that's another good thing too. And I probably don't mention it enough on the shows. When you go look at apps, especially if I do an older one on the show, have a look, click this little section here and the version history and see how much care they put into it. You can tell a good developer by how many updates they put in and how much they fucking love their app. The evidence is there to use.
Yeah, for sure. And it also shows that they're like receiving enough incentive to keep working on it. Right. So that means that there's buy-in from users.
Yeah.
That they're getting updates like that.
It means they may not just be eating bread alone, hopefully. So you can change that, folks. What else do you have for me?
Let's see. I think another app that I came across early on in kind of exploring iOS music, and also before I got into development, was Fugue Machine. And that's a really fun sequencer. And that also, I like the 4 playheads kind of thing. And that's part of the inspiration for having 4 playheads in ZOA. I think 4 is just a good number. It's you can sort of wrap your head around 4 things. So that, Fugue Machine was really fun to play around with. And it kind of gave me, maybe it started me thinking about, there's a lot of potential for interesting generative stuff on iPad.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I nearly bought this during the sale. I had only a limited amount of money to spend during the sale, and I ended up choosing between this and, what was it? It was Roostmaker. The drum thing. I can't think of the word. Roostmaker.
Is it Noir?
That's it. Yeah, thank you. So it was between this and that, and I went for that over this, and now I'm kind of regretting it. But it's one day I'll get it. You can only have so many apps.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. And I think those are maybe the main apps I have in mind, but a couple like other developers that have inspired me would be like Clevgrind, Eric Scythe, Humbletune, right? I'm not sure I'm pronouncing his name right, but Clevgrind is great, and Tardigrade is the granular sequencer that he makes. Yeah. So both of those developers, I love their user interfaces and their kind of playful take on things.
Yeah. Tardigrade and what was the one he released this year? Is it Rim de Gere?
That kind of reverb noise box. That one looks really cool.
Beautiful. And
I don't have
the whole
it.
story with it too.
It sounds.
What
great.
reminds me, ZOA reminded me of that. Really, if you look at the 2 shows I did on ZOA and Rim de Gere, they were very similar because Rim de Gere has this amazing story at the beginning about these robots talking to each other, and it's beautiful, really, really beautifully put together. And it was the same same deal, because I opened that show by focusing probably the first 15 minutes on that whole story. And it was the same thing when I did your show on ZOA. I focused on the Wikipedia page, on the game of life, and showing the patterns. And I think, I don't know, I think there's something a bit, I don't want to sound wanky and like Steve Jobs here, rest his soul, but there's something a bit magical about stuff like that. When there's a little bit of a story and things like that, that it kind of pulls you in. It's a bit like a fairy tale, and I don't know, it's a bit endearing. I love that kind of stuff. It's very, very cool. They're great developers.
Yeah.
Both of them. Clevgrand as well. Some hit and miss, I think, with Clevgrand, but there's something about Clevgrand that's mysterious, I think, that makes them interesting, because they don't really show what goes on behind the scenes, and every app is like a magic source kind of thing. That's what I like about them.
Yeah, and I guess the other I'll mention, of course, is Moog. You know, I have the Model D and the Model 15, and they both just sound great. You know, and they're fun to use.
Yeah, you'll love the Moog Z. It's wow. There's a lot to it.
Yeah, I don't have that one yet, but I got to hop on it.
It's definitely like very, very cool. And as I said, I only really got to scratch the surface by just trying to explain the new Z modeling and everything. And then by the time I got to the end of the show, it was like, oh wow, I haven't even gone through any of the presets. So it's like, wow, I have to do another show on it. Alrighty, so we're at the end, and I'm going to hit you with the famous question that everybody already knows the answer to. If somebody was becoming creative, Ryan, when would you suggest for them to start?
Right now.
Boom! Absolutely.
Yeah. And I guess if I can add one thing, you know, for my kind of road as a developer, I would say just a little bit each day. That's what I would say to start with. And that's how I got started, you know, and just taking small steps each day to learn what you want to do. And if you're doing a little bit, you're going to get there eventually.
Yeah. Rome wasn't built in a day. And and don't be hard on yourself. Just keep plodding along, and you know, as long as you're learning something each day, and you come off a little bit better, leave the world better off than it was before you touched it. And it's the same with learning too. Speaking of learning, what's your opinion on learning? Do you read manuals?
Not as much as I should. It is. I actually I've realized I've actually started watching less YouTube as I go along programming, because I've gotten more impatient. So I used to watch a lot of programming tutorials on YouTube, but now I'm just, where's the code that I could just sort of copy and paste in here from Stack Overflow? Or, you know, so I've actually started reading more blog posts to learn like programming stuff, because you can sort of take those at your own pace more.
I tend to read manuals. I like to read manuals, you know, and it's just something that's come up over the last couple of days. I'm sure it's set up by Marshall knows what I'm talking about here. I just tend to think that if you're going to try and understand something, the best way to go is to like learn the basics of not even like, all right, for example, just say you get a new piece of hardware. You don't necessarily need to learn the actual piece of hardware, but just to have an understanding of how the majority of hardware works and the names of things like low pass filters and high, just that kind of stuff. I think it's really important to learn that kind of stuff. Anyway, it's a tangent I've gone on. But I want to thank you so very much for spending some time with us today and coming on. It's really, I think it's really interesting to hear from a developer's perspective. I hope everybody here in the chat's got a little bit something from this. And I hope you'll now, probably when you buy apps, think about the face behind the app, the person behind the app, because you know what? They're human and they're hungry And, you know, and they work their asses off to make these beautiful things for us, these beautiful, shiny things. And I think we often don't get a chance to thank them personally for what they do. So I want to say thank you so much for the stuff that you've made. I think it's really cool. I look forward to the stuff that you've got coming in the future. And thank you for coming on and talking about your experiences as a developer on this show.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate just that you've given me and just lots of people opportunity to share about their experience and what they're doing. I think it's really cool what you're doing on this channel. And I'm so glad to hear that people are out there, using ZOA, using my other apps and having fun. That's just a really humbling thing for me. It's always crazy to get an email, from a user that says, "Hey, thanks, this app was really cool." And that I really appreciate feedback like that. It keeps me motivated and keeps me, excited to be doing what I'm doing. So I'm grateful.
Fantastic. And thank you. And guys, I won't be back until, I don't think I'm doing a show until Sunday if you're living in the rest of the world, because I'm taking a couple of days off. I'll be back doing the Patreon show. No opening hour this week. Depends on what happens with my tooth, which will be in a couple of hours' time. But yeah, thanks all for supporting the channel and being here today. And I'll see you all again shortly. Remember, there are some giveaways on the Patreon, so make sure you add your name to the Wheel of Warts, and I'll get to that on the weekend. And thank you once again, Ryan, for coming on the show. Stay on the line, and we'll go out with just the theme music this week. And we'll see you again shortly. Thanks, everybody. Take care.
Bye. Thanks for having me.
Bye. Oh, I got to get the... I'm so disorganized today. I've got to actually get the theme music ready. Let's try this. All right, we're good. Turn up this, and we should be ready to go. See you later, everyone. Bye.